Okay, this time we're going to create a game using the iPad or the phone's accelerometer. So when you create a new project, this time we'll click Game, Create. This one we'll call it Game. And we'll just create it on the desktop. So when you create a game, it comes with a whole lot of things pre-loaded in. Setting up the game, you'll notice that you have a game scene. And this is where we're going to add in, you can zoom out to see what it looks like. We're going to add in a few things. First of all, we're going to add in a Sprite node, and you can just stretch it. And this is going to be our border for our objects to roll around in. We have to change a couple of things here though. So we need to, with our Sprite node, we want to go down and just adjust the physics. We want it to be a bounding rectangle, but we don't want to have any dynamics or rotation effects or effects by gravity. We want this to be solid and not moving when we tilt our phone. So once we've done that, we can just copy it and paste it, stick it on the other side, stick in another one, but we'll put those down the bottom, so shrink that down. And copy and paste that up here. Now you can change the colors, you can change the look of it a lot more, but we'll just keep it nice and simple to start with. The other thing is we want to create our ball. So we'll put in another Sprite node, we'll change the color maybe to blue, and we will also set the body type to a bounding rectangle. You could do a bounding circle if you want it to be a circle, but we'll stick with a rectangle just for the time being. We want to have, this time we want it to have dynamics, we want it to allow rotation, and we want it to be affected by gravity. We are just going to change these elements though. So we're going to change the mask to 1, the collision mask to 2, the field mask to 1, and the contact mask to 2. And this will become more obvious why we do this when we create our the hole that we're trying to take our ball and roll it into. Now, just for amusement, I'm going to stick another couple of these things in to make it a little bit more tricky. So let's drag that in. Maybe stick that there, and then another one. And we'll stick another one there. So we're starting to build a little bit of a maze. Now obviously you can make it a lot more complicated, design it however you wish, but you get the idea. You've got that flexibility. So once we've made our game scene, we come back to our gamescene.swift file. This is where we're going to delete everything here. We don't need any of this. And we're going to put in our own elements. We've got our Sprite kit imported, we've got our game play imported. We're going to also import our core motion. We need to add in another delegate here, our SK physics contact delegate, and this allows us to detect collisions for our game later on. But we need to add in a few bits into our code. So we're going to go let manager equal, and we're going to make a CMM motion manager. So a CM motion manager, and then just close the brackets off. This is going to be our manager to collect and control all the motion of the screen. Then we're going to declare our players. So we're going to create a variable called player, and this is going to be of type SK Sprite node, close brackets, and then we're going to do a var We'll call this one end, and that's also going to be equal to an SK Sprite node. So we've declared these. Now we want to bring in our normal override function. And we'll call this one override did move. We send that to view, and it will be the SK view. And of course we need to open our brackets for our function. So this is where we're going to put most of our work in here. So to start off with, we need to set up our world, our physics world. So we've got the gravity and being able to control the ball falling around the screen. So we go self dot physics world dot contact delegate equals self. So this just kind of sets up our physics world. Now we need to set our player up. So we go player equals self dot child node with name, and we're going to player. This needs to be the same name that you've called the node on the game scene. Oh, let's bring that back. Player, and we need to force that as a SK Sprite node. Okay, then we need to get our accelerator information. So this is from our manager dot start accelerometer updates. So that starts getting information about the movement of the phone, and then we're going to set how often we want to get those updates. So manager dot accelerometer update. Where are we? How have I spelled it? Update intervals, that's what we want. So this detects, basically says how often do you want to check it, and we'll point it at 0.1. You can change that for how frequently you want to check if there's a tilt, but that should give you plenty of updates. Then we need to actually start the whole process of collecting that data. So we go manager dot start accelerometer updates, and it needs to be the 1.2 operation Q. So where are we? There's a couple of these that we need to get the right one. So it is start accelerometer updates brackets 2 colon operation Q dot main close brackets open curly brackets close brackets. Oops, it'd help if I spelt main correct there. Now we need to set the speed, but we just need to put in a couple of other little bits in here. We've got data error, and this is to collect errors if there is a problem with our loading in, and then we call self dot physics world dot gravity equals, and this is a little bit complicated, but we just need to set the gravity to a particular vector. which allows us to set that to the right amount of gravity. We can adjust this throughout there, but it is a CG vector, brackets, and then we'll call all of the various variables. So dx is the first one, and that's going to be type data, question mark, assuming we can find that data, acceleration dot in the x direction. Then we need to comma dy, so we get the dy data, and again it is data dot acceleration dot y. We've just got a small problem here, so we'll just sort that out. It would help if I spelt that correctly. So accelerometer always needs to be spelt correctly. So we've now got our x and y set up. We're going to adjust those in a little while, but we'll leave them as is just to begin with, so you can see what it does as it runs. And we've got, we need to force that, and we'll need to force that one as well with an exclamation mark to force those to actually come out. Then we're going to create another function. So this one is going to be a function we're just going to call didBegin. And that's a contact in the physics contact. So this is if there is any contact between our sprite nodes. So what we're going to do is let body A equal contact dot body A, let body B equal contact body B, and then we need to write an if statement to see if these two, if we actually get a collision between our two nodes. So let's do that. We want to go if body A, and you can call the various categories of body A, and we want the category bit mask equals 1. Remember, these are the things that we set back in the game scene. When you click on those, category mask, these, and the collision mask, these are the things that we're calling. So if the category mask equals 1 and body B dot category bit mask equals 2, then we have a collision. But of course we could have it the other way. So we need to do an OR, and it's going to be exactly the same but the opposite way around. So I'm just going to copy that if statement, paste it in, and go, instead of that being 1, it's going to be 2. Instead of that being 2, it's going to be 1. Then we want to start our bit of code. So this will be called if there's a collision. And if there's a collision, we're just, at the moment, we're just going to say print bracket U1. Later we'll add in and change the label so it actually appears on the screen. This won't actually appear on the screen. Oh, it's not with a capital P, sorry about that, lowercase p, print. Just remember, when you do run it, it must be run on a device that can detect movement. I'm using iOS 11, so you do need to set that deployment before it will run. So you'll notice that immediately that doesn't actually start to play. That's because we get this line crashing. Where are we? Just here. Because it's trying to look for the node player, but we haven't defined it. So we need to go to our game scene, click on our node, and we need to give it the name player, because that will search for that. And now we've fixed that, that should now run. So running that, you'll notice two things. One, it's falling really, really slowly. So we're going to speed that up by changing a little bit of our code. In the graphics, at the moment, this acceleration is super slow. So we are just going to times that by 10. And that will allow our player, the ball, to move around a lot faster. The other thing that you'll notice is it keeps, as you turn the phone, it keeps flipping from portrait to landscape. And we want to stop that. So we're just going to have the orientation in portrait. So you change the left and right landscapes, and then it locks it into portrait. The other element is, at the moment, it's probably too big for the screen, and I'll show you how we can adjust that depending on what you're using, whether it be an iPad or an iPhone, in just a minute. The other thing we need to add in now is an end point. So we're going to put in another one here. Let's change the color to green. That's where we're going to. And this one's going to be our end. So that's where we're trying to get to. So this will detect our 2. We needed our end to actually be available. So when we run it this time, hopefully we will get our 2 to collide, and we should get U1 appearing down here. Now, when you moved around, you would have noticed that the blue just ran straight past our green. It didn't collide at all, and that's because we haven't changed our body type to our bounding rectangle. So we're also going to adjust these so it can recognize that collision. So we need our end one to be category mask 2, collision type 1, field 2, and collision 1. That means they should actually collect, and it'll actually realize that it's something to bounce off. Another thing you'll notice is you're not seeing the full screen. To do that, we want to click on our game scene, click on the back, and you'll see our size, custom. You can set it to a particular size. I'm using an iPad Pro, and we want it in portrait. So you can see that this is the bit that I'm actually seeing. We need to shrink this down a bit to actually get the whole element in. So you'll need to pick the device you want to look at it under, and just make sure that you can actually see. Oh, don't want to stretch that out. The actual screen that you want to see. Now, just a little tip: if you are using an iPad and you've locked it to portrait but it's still rotating, you need to select the iPad device, and you'll notice that all of a sudden they're all unlocked, and just make sure that you've locked it to that as well in the universal and the iPad. The iPhone, that one should follow the universal, but the iPad for some reason doesn't, and you need to force that to do it. So now we should have our app running. So at the moment I've got a flaw in my game that the Sprite node actually can't get into there. The other flaw is that this is moving around. So we don't want this to be dynamic or allowing rotation or be affected by gravity. So our end node needs to be fixed. When we run it again, and you can see appearing down here that when they connect, we get U1 coming up. So there's our game. You can obviously edit it, make the maze a lot more complicated, but that's the simple game using physics and Sprite.